Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter. Take 2.
Take 3. Hello Internet, I'm...
Oh, fine. Just trash my contribution.
Take 4. This is all going in, isn't it?
Well, you leave me to do the editing, you gotta take what you can get.
Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter. Take 5.
Okay.
Just get on with it.
Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
And welcome to Breaking Bollocks, episode 15.
Yeah, I can't remember because we've tried to start before and our new... there's a bit of follow-up, wasn't there, that kind of referred to a new ambient mic we're using to capture Mrs. Orbiter's contribute.
We'll go for it. Right,
Let's
so the
try and do it
follow-up
again.
was... we had an ambient mic, which was the one that we used in our first couple of videos. One that we just shared between us because it picked up pretty much everything. But we don't use that anymore because it's picked up.
We were trying to use it as an aggregate mic with our audio interface.
But Logic doesn't seem to like that, so
we've replaced it with...
Yeah.
The reasoning behind it is to pick up any contributions from our occasional third contributor to the podcast.
Who has so far been dubbed Mrs. Orbiter.
But we think she should have
a proper name.
Or, as I referred to, Monica. Well, actually, that is a girl's name, isn't it? I meant Monica as in Moniker, which is a name.
Isn't it monogram?
No, I think that's something to do with an autograph.
Monogram is like the initial letter of like your name or your company or something.
There she is.
So the name...
Starstuff.
Yeah.
Is her name.
I can show you some monograms if you want.
I think the podcast audience might not get the full value from that.
You can buy stuff from my website.
Oh, that's true. Oh, here we go. She's plugging already.
As soon as she gets a mic, she'll use it to plug her stuff.
So, I beg your pardon.
Oh, Jesus.
This was never going to work out well, was it? So anyway.
No.
We ran out of coffee, so Firebolt's on the coffee, and I've started...
You've not run out of coffee, you just wanted a whiskey.
Well, I wasn't the one that tried to make instant coffee with ground coffee.
Well, fuck you.
So, Tamnavulin single malt is my drink of choice this evening.
Whiskey. A wee dram.
Yeah.
We do have some other follow-up.
Yeah.
Now, as we...
Yeah, that's where we got to, isn't it? Yeah, carry on.
As we accumulate subjects...
not followers.
Talking
it was funny at the first time.
It might have been, yeah. But this is going terribly already. As we accumulate...
I'm enjoying it.
It's getting more and more difficult to keep track of those various things. You have heard us vaguely go, oh yeah, Brexit's not going particularly well, occasionally. Or occasionally just going, oh yeah, this happened fairly recently. But we are doing formal progress checks now.
Yeah, and this was the point, I think, at which I noticed our recording wasn't working. I was about to say that fits in nicely with a suggestion I was going to make, that each podcast we mention at the beginning the date that we're recording it, because obviously it's quite specific to current events sometimes.
So we are recording this on the 1st of July, 2018.
Absolutely. It's now 10:02 p.m. BST.
Because we're faffing about a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that your follow-up?
I haven't finished yet.
Okay, we'll get on with it then.
We were thinking of doing those progress checks. Well, I was thinking of doing those progress checks about every 5 episodes, so that sounded right.
Yep, sounds good to me.
So we'll just do a rapid rundown of all the... What are you doing?
I'm wiping the spittle off the screen. Don't know if it's yours or mine. It's on my fingers now, though. That's gross.
Oh, well.
Carry on.
Yeah, so we'll just do a rapid rundown of all the subjects that we have done so far, and that will get more and more difficult, so we'll have to get more and more rapid, unless these are going to be like our marathon last time.
Well, some things we'll just leave behind, won't we?
Okay, freedom of speech. Anything now?
Don't think so, other than the obvious.
I did...
But we kind of mentioned at the time about Trump being a dick, and...
Yeah, I did see there. What was it? I think it was called the Capital Gazette. Someone decided to shoot them up.
Oh yeah, I saw that the other day.
And they had like a feud with them or something.
That's freedom of the press, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's connected.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed was a couple of people pointed out was that the alt-right, who have been inciting this sort of violence for quite some time, were delighted at this, which is worrying and perhaps a symptom of Trump.
Yeah, but it kind of it is worrying, but it's kind of in keeping with the general march towards a fascist global society, which we seem to be encountering at the moment. Well, not a single one, many disparate ones.
Yeah, I mean, populists seem to be rising up everywhere, but they're both on the left and right. It's just not usually in the same country.
I think what concerns me to a certain extent is that it's your generation that's probably going to be doing the mop-up. In a similar
we
kind
have
of
to
way.
clean up your shit.
Well, we're cleaning up the shit from the previous generation.
Yeah, it's just a series of shits, cleaning up after shits.
Yeah, well, you spend so much time changing the nappies of your kids when they're kids that you just think, well, I'm going to leave some shit behind for them to clear up as well.
We'll move on
All
quickly.
joking aside, yeah, do that.
Anything about copyright?
Copyright.
EU introduced something about copyright.
Yeah, they did. About copywriting everything on the internet, basically.
Pretty much, yeah, which is really worrying for memes.
I'm not that fussed about memes, but it's worrying
But
in general.
memes are the blood of the internet. They are important to the internet.
They're the virus of the internet.
But sometimes they can be good.
Yeah.
How am I going to survive without my memes? And also it's worrying for
It is worrying.
the sort of people that make... there's so much uncertainty around fair use, I guess, because it's a very grey area.
What I wonder, though, is that quite a lot of the time, some of these laws that come out, surely a law... I mean, this kind of ties into the... is it morality? Or no, it'll be crime, won't it? Which
we'll get on to.
Yeah, at some point soon. How effective and basically operational is a law if everyone ignores it? I mean,
Well, it
this
depends
law
how
on
it's
copyright.
enforced.
Who's gonna take people to court over using particular images?
The owners of it.
Right. And the owner of, like with memes, it tends to be... I mean, there's fair use, isn't there?
Yeah.
So would a single frame from a movie as a picture, would that be considered fair use?
We don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Okay. Well, if things are going the way they are, Europe's not going to be much of a thing for much longer anyway.
We'll talk about that once we get onto it. Right.
Yeah.
Education. Anything new there?
We don't need it.
I do have something slightly new there, because it is basically, I don't know if this is the same everywhere else. Once you get into secondary in the UK, or at least in Scotland, you move up to the next year like a month before all the primary people would.
Yeah, you get a trial few weeks at the end of your fourth year, don't you? Third year, sorry.
Whatever. Every secondary year. So I have moved up to fourth year recently, and I'm finding that a lot of the things is just, oh, this is important for an exam. Why? Oh, it's just the exam. I'm getting really pissed at that and bored. But other than that, everything's terrific. It's
Education's fucked anyway.
Whatever. It's normally the subjects I don't particularly care about anyway.
So, skipping on.
Yes. Automation.
God, Jesus, it's hot. We're in the middle of a heat wave here. If you hear cars going past, we've got the windows open because it's fucking warm.
Automation. Nothing?
No, don't think so.
Nothing I can think
Nothing
of.
glaring.
Brexit. Now, I do have an article about this.
Is that still going on?
Yes, it is. Also, I wanted to mention, I think we did watch this. On Netflix, there's James Acaster's comedy special, a couple of them actually, called Repertoire. And in that, he makes a very fitting analogy of Brexit about a tea bag. Now, I believe it is the decision is to leave the tea bag in or take the tea bag out. If you leave the tea bag in, the cup of tea as a whole is stronger, even though the tea bag appears to be weaker. But if you take it out, the cup of tea gets weaker, and the tea bag goes directly in the bin.
Do you know what though? I'm getting really fed up with people using every single fucking metaphor they can conjure up. It's like, It's not a cup of tea.
Yep.
It's a union of countries.
Did you listen to anything I was saying?
Yeah.
You didn't even hear the punchline, I don't think.
Sorry, well, carry on then. Give us a punchline.
Well, it doesn't matter. You just started speaking before the actual punchline happened.
Sorry.
So.
Do it again then.
No, that's fine. Just be a cunt if you want.
Oh dear. But I do. That is. We know it's.
We're fucked, basically.
Yeah. Scotland might have an escape clause at some point, but
maybe not. It doesn't.
The Sturgeon is working towards.
But right now, from the looks of it, there's not been much progress on the deal, and the deadline is October. Right now, it's July for us. So unless a lot of progress gets made in the last couple of months, then
I just dismay at politics. It's
no deal is seeming quite a likely possibility. Yesterday,
Great.
I don't have the article.
So all the flights are going to get cancelled for people who've got holidays booked for next year.
Probably. I think it was yesterday. The EU the EU leader people, had a marathon meeting lasting 9 hours when they emerged at 4 a.m.
I will still be able to get to America though.
Basically saying about migration thingy. I'll try and bring out
because Trump's coming over soon, isn't he?
Yeah, but I doubt.
I still think we should have a national strike that day.
Probably will. I'll try and find whatever it was. Probably will just cancel again because he's scared of people shooting him in the face.
This may be,
hitting him with bricks.
This may be the last episode that I drink whiskey in.
Why?
Depending on how it turns out.
I doubt it.
Okay. You know me too well.
This is an independent article basically saying that the EU doesn't think that there'll be a deal by October. Because, well, first of all, the Tories are sort of infighting, sort of connecting to UK politics, and there's loads of members that want something different each. Like Italy's basically said, we're taking all the migrants in, and they have a new populist government that's gonna fuck things up a bit. Germany's trying to keep it all together. Hungary and the Czech Republic, I believe it's Czech Republic, both have quite right-wing leaders that don't want any migrants as far as I can tell. So the Schengen area is quite at risk there.
So Putin's just sat thinking, we just wait.
I wouldn't be surprised if he engineered it all.
Yeah.
Oh Christ, I just saw Nigel Farage's face on this.
Somebody needs to punch that.
And it has been 2 years since the vote.
Has it?
Because that was 23rd of June.
Yeah. Everything's just tied up in bureaucracy, isn't it?
Religion? Anything about
There's
that?
Nothing's going to have changed in our views on it, is there?
No, nothing's changed in our views, but I did see two things to do with humanism. First of all, humanist weddings are now the most common in Scotland.
I played for one yesterday. Well, I didn't actually play at it. Yeah, I did. I played at the reception afterwards. But anyway, yes, I like them very much.
And
cool.
They have been legalised in Northern Ireland. Still yet to be legalised in England and Wales. Waiting on you.
There's a thing actually in Scottish humanist ceremonies. I don't know whether it's a Scottish thing or a humanist thing. I think it's probably a Scottish thing, where they don't always do it, but they have a thing where the bride and groom put their hands together, and they have a piece of cloth each, which is, I think generally in Scotland it tends to be like a piece of tartan from each family, and they tie them together and tie their hands together, and then when they pull, they make a knot in the middle. Each of them pulls their bit of tartan, and it makes a knot in the middle of the two cloths, and that's where the term tying the knot comes from.
Oh. I imagine that's more a Scottish.
I like their drinking from the quake.
Or just generally
it's really bad for
a wedding tradition.
Spreading viruses, maybe, but drinking from the quake, they fill a bowl with whiskey and basically pass it round for everybody to have a drink from. Really unhygienic, but... Carry on, sorry. Interrupted.
What was 7? US politics, anything new there?
No,
other than Trump
it's still
fucking
fucked.
everything up.
I just hope they last until October, because I want to go on holiday.
And also, important thing, we'll get more into this later, but November is when the midterms are. So we're holding out hope for that, I guess.
Yeah, but...
Because they do affect the rest of the world heavily too. What was 8? The future. Anything new about that?
Well, we're in it now.
Yeah.
What's happened? Well, we're kind of dealing with it, aren't we, as we go along?
Okay.
Without going into it's more speculation, that one, isn't it? So
yeah. History. Anything there?
There's a bit more of it behind us, and we're kind of covering that in as we go along.
Great.
But without going back and doing more of it, then the bit in between is our catch up.
Okay. It doesn't. War. Anything new there?
I don't think anyone's declared war yet, have they? Since we did that,
probably, but it's probably been not
nobody
really covered.
Significant,
I guess. Drugs. Anything new there?
No. Anything new on your side?
Not as far as I know.
I think you would probably know, unless you've had too many.
Did we talk about the thing with the epilepsy?
I did particularly notice, because there's Canada. I don't know if this is since our drugs talk, but Canada has legalised recreational use of marijuana.
First G8 country.
G7.
G7.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be G8.
But one thing I did notice, and this ties in with freedom of the press and everything, pretty much straight away after that happened, I started seeing articles in certain newspapers and comments from certain people, or sharing of memes from certain people on my Facebook feed, which were very much attacking recreational use of marijuana, about it, doing all the old traditional things about it leading to psychosis and being a gateway drug and all that. And I know I'm not sort of making a for or against case for that, but it was quite interesting that those articles came out immediately as that happened in Canada.
One thing that I did see that looks at those arguments against marijuana in depth and with some more respect is, I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, but I think it's Kurzgesagt. They did a video, I think it was called Should We Ban Marijuana, something like that. You can link to it.
It may well be already in the...
It might be.
Yeah. Because you've referred to Kurzgesagt a couple of times. And there is a video in the drugs talk about that.
Okay.
But I would say, I mean, that response about the psychosis and stuff and the gateway drug, those things would be removed if it was legalised, because the psychosis tends to be more from the really strong strains that come out because it's underground. And there would still be a certain amount of underground network, if you like, for providing those stronger strains, but a lot less people would go to them, because you'd get the safe versions, if you like, being licensed.
And most people would want to go for the safe versions.
Well, yeah, it's too much hassle to get involved in the criminal side of things.
Which we'll talk about
in a minute.
Anything new for the games industry? E3 happened.
Yes.
E3 happened, so a lot of new things came out there.
Referring to something that we spoke about on that episode, I held the poll.
You held the poll.
I held the poll. I said we should put it to a poll about transparent pings.
Oh, I saw a couple of replies because I sometimes get emails about people on Facebook
Yes.
that I don't usually pay attention to unless they seem entertaining.
One of which said there ain't no I in PNG, and I responded with there ain't no A in is not.
Ain't was actually a proper term though before. Yeah, it was used by what was it?
Starstuff looks like she might have some input here.
No.
Ain't used to be a proper term, and it's like people complaining about people using literally wrong, despite the fact Jane Austen does it.
In reference to the actual poll, it went, I don't know how many we had, but it went 80% against the use of the term ping and 20% for the use of the term ping. So if you would care to, have you heard of the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C?
Yeah, maybe.
An officially kind of recognised organisation that was kind of set up around the time that the internet started.
Right.
For establishing and defining web standards. So if you would care to go to the W3C website.
I'm guessing that you're sending me here for proof.
World Wide Web Consortium, International Community. Yeah, blah, blah. So do a search over here for PNG definition. Okay, this is the Portable Network Graphics Specification version 1 from 1st of October 1996, which I believe was the year after the internet started, wasn't it? Although, no, sorry, the year after the World Wide Web started. Yes. So if you would care to scroll down to the very bottom of the page, this is not the same page that I looked at.
Of course. Yeah, I'm sure if you look into some website, then it will come up.
No. Look, Google, hang on. I'll put in the same search that I put in, and then we'll get to the root.
You don't have to search Google in Google.
PNG. PNG.
You old twat.
Pronunciation.
It's always spelled PNG. And always pronounced ping in English, not ping.
Yeah, but that's libpng.org. That's not what I would consider to be. Here we go. PNG specification introduction. This is the W3C, which is the reason being that I particularly chose that because it is the right. Here we go at the bottom. Pronunciation.
Yeah, but that's just
PNG is pronounced ping. W3. Say it may have fallen out of use.
But why do you think W3C is such a reputable thing? Why do you
because
think?
It's an international organisation of contributors that are all in agreement that they will. It's a bit like the European Union. They come together and try to make up rules between them.
Or the United Nations.
Well, I will
why
say,
is it called?
I will
pang,
say I've done official.
Or peng, or pung, or.
I will say I have done official web
Pong
design.
would be
Will
better.
you let me finish, please?
No.
I have done official web design courses.
Fuck you.
And they are referenced as the authority. In you look up any.
Oh, la-di-da. I don't give a shit. The actual internet thinks it's that I'm right, so
Well,
fuck you.
yeah, but there was a time when the majority of people thought that there was a god. Didn't
not
make
right
it
now.
true. all I would say is
I
that
still won the argument by your rules originally to put it to a poll, so fuck you.
I didn't say that would determine the answer to the question. I just said we should put it to a poll and see. Because I was surprised, actually, that more people don't refer to it as a ping. Because I always have.
Right, it stands for Portable Network Graphics. The only part of that even features an I is graphics, and that's nowhere near P or N. So
ping is easier to say than PNG.
Why can you call it Pong from the portable part?
Well, yeah, I suppose you could, if you wanted to. But the International Consortium for Setting Standards have said it's ping.
The ASU doesn't think that Pluto is a planet, but they're monsters.
I would say it's a draw.
I would say
The authority on it says it's ping. The general public say it's not.
and the general public usually win out, apparently.
That's why Trump's in power.
Exactly. So might equals
So fuck
right.
it, I'm sticking with ping. Because the general public are usually wrong.
Might is right. And the general public didn't actually vote for Trump.
We should maybe... who invented the portable network graphic? Our graphics designer.
I don't know.
She doesn't know.
PNG designer. This is going to be like half a podcast. What?
Well, PNG designer. That's for making your own PNGs.
Fine. Inventor.
Yeah. Well, that's a piece of software. Just put who invented the PNG.
That's shit searching though.
Probably
Who is the
about
inventor of? Yeah, who is
50 people at Adobe or something.
Well, I was thinking Adobe.
Probably Thomas Knoll, because he's the person who does most...
Knoll.
Thomas Knoll.
I've seen
The main-
KNOLL.
Yeah,
I've
the
seen
main
that
designer with Adobe.
name. Yeah. See, PNG would have done not.
Well, it didn't come up for anything, so
What, on autocomplete?
yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't come up with something when you got to POR. Actually, this is Wikipedia. They must have something on pronunciation here. This is really not what our podcast is about, is it?
Well, this was your decision.
I'm doing follow-up.
You can't.
How dare you? Hey, whoa, what's this? Oliver Fromm, author of the popular DOS JPEG viewer QPEG, proposed the ping name, meaning ping is not GIF, and also the PNG extension.
Yeah, but everywhere else just calls it PNG.
Well, clearly they don't, unless you count me as not being anywhere. Or W3C as well, as not being anywhere.
That's technicality. Bullshit.
It's a draw. See, here. PNG, pronounced PNG or peng.
So we're
both right. Yeah,
and
but
that was a whole waste of time.
No, because you were calling me wrong. I wasn't calling you wrong.
Yes, you were.
No, you
Yes,
can't.
you
I
were.
didn't say you can't call it a PNG.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that you can't call it a ping.
No, but you took the piss out of me for calling it a peng.
Exactly. But you took the piss out of me for calling it...
What do you mean exactly?
Well, you specifically showed me the international standard, whatever bollocks,
Yeah, because
just to show that I was wrong, despite the fact that we're both right.
No, I didn't say you
So
were wrong.
we're both dickheads.
No, because the international standard doesn't say you can't call it PNG.
It says it's pronounced ping. And the other thing today,
Okay.
it's pronounced ping, not...
Should we get on to today's topic?
Maybe.
I've nearly finished my first whiskey, but this is gonna be
Maybe we should, rather than pursuing this stupid line of questioning. You
Oh,
piece of shit.
Look, we're going to lose listeners in droves here, or
Exactly.
maybe not. Maybe they will enjoy
Conflict is getting us all the views.
Yeah. Well, they do say, don't they?
Podcast gone wrong.
That would be
2018.
a pigow.
I think we're settled. It should be called Pong.
I wouldn't disagree with calling it pong as a compromise.
Considering the fact that there's no I there.
I'm pretty sure I'm not sure I wouldn't be misunderstood if I started referring to transparent pongs though.
We all know what that means.
Nearly choked.
I love doing that.
On to the topic. Cause
Crime.
We've been talking for long enough about fucking pings and pongs and PNGs.
Ah, shit, we've nearly done half an hour.
Yeah, just on
Actually,
your
no, we've
fucking
done more
bullshit.
than half an hour. It's not bullshit, it's a follow-up.
It's bullshit.
Crime.
It's bollocks.
Breaking bollocks.
Exactly. Roll credits.
Yeah, we should. Shall we?
What?
That's a crime. To call this episode would be a crime. A crime would be a crime, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Are we actually going to talk about crime?
Just call it PNG.
Right. So, what was your idea? Because I don't want to get too serious. This always happens, and we end up talking about death or something.
Well, we will get on to that.
Great.
Death penalty and all, but right. The first story that I want to bring up, it's relatively recent. I'll click through to this if it actually clicks through.
I did notice there is a particular. I mean, it's probably just a reflection of the internet and the world in general, but there seems to be quite a bias towards American stuff.
Yeah.
In our chats.
Yeah, but
they reckon they're the world police. So
they kind of are, though.
Well, that looks worrying. Oh, that's an opinion, though. A New York Times opinion. New York Times. Do you have any idea of how respected that is as a
I think
journal?
It's generally respected.
So looking at the typeface, it looks very similar to the Guardian typeface.
It is in the same vein as that, I believe,
Yeah.
with especially the opinion section, rather than just printing it as facts like the Daily Mail probably would.
Guardian stuff I tend to agree with. I have noticed the Independent here have been pissing me off a bit lately. Some of the things I don't know, they seem to be quite insightful into sort of division, but not always.
I believe it's...
And maybe a bit more confrontational than the Guardian.
Reputable, I think, though.
Yeah.
And it's more exposés, I believe.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's maybe a little bit more...
head on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is the news that the opinion is a jury may have sentenced a man to death because he's gay, and the justices don't care. The justice being the Supreme Court justices, which we will get onto. Now, the reason for this, I believe, was... Hang on, what was it? This is in South Dakota. Now, the jurors decided to give him the death penalty, which we'll also get onto. And the reason they thought of this... Now, this man was gay, who committed a murder, supposedly, allegedly. I don't know if he actually committed the murder.
I've just read her head in that, and I'm disgusted.
What?
That this jury weren't held in contempt.
Basically, they said... I think... A couple of them said, I think a gay man would enjoy prison because they're surrounded by men.
He would, presumably they're insinuating that he would spend his time dropping his soap.
Yeah, so they decided to give him the death penalty.
To save... Well, no, not so... Because they thought sending him to prison would be a reward, presumably.
Yeah. Negating the fact that in the death penalty cases, usually they're held on death row before they're actually given the death penalty for 15, 20 years. With other people, as far as I know. They might not be held up with other people, I don't know entirely, but I do remember doing some research for a debate on that a little while ago, and it was about 15 to 20 years that they were held, so...
LGBT in general is going in the right direction globally, but that particular story is a fucking joke.
But one of the important things about this, and one that started an argument on the NoCube Discord server, is
I should get on Discord.
the way that the Supreme Court works in America. Now, fairly recently, a Supreme Court justice retired. I can't remember his name, which means that Trump gets to pick a new one. He might have picked it by the time this goes out, but right now...
I saw that.
It's not been picked yet, as far as we know. And a lot of people are saying for them to wait until the midterms, because then the Democrats might actually be in power from the estimates, because...
This harks back to our US politics, maybe a bit of mixed follow-up is, how does that work? The midterms... Because presumably the US politics system... He can't. I mean, apart from being impeached, he's not going to lose his presidency at that point.
No.
But does it mean that they could get a majority? The Democrats could get a majority in what is it, the House of Representatives or Congress? What's the difference?
The House of Representatives is... Well, Congress, I believe, is 2 houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is like, I believe it's 2 per district. There's loads of them.
Am I right in assuming that...
The Senate, though, there's 2 senators per state.
Right.
And the Senate get to vote on approving the Supreme Court justice.
Which does tie into our, I can't remember which episode we were talking about democracy.
We did talk about that a little.
Yeah, about the United States being a flawed democracy.
Yeah.
Basically, does that mean that the system that they operate does not work under the terms, the definition of the term democracy?
No. One of the things that we that was worried about this Supreme Court justice retiring was despite being conservative, he was first of all a deciding vote in the gay marriage decision, and also he supports abortion, the pro-choice movement.
Mm.
So if Trump has his way, I think there's like 7 of them, then they could undo gay marriage, set back gay rights a couple of years.
I know how that would work. Imagine maybe.
But also, this person will be there until they retire or die.
What if...
So that will be felt for decades after.
Say that happened in Scotland. I know it wouldn't be, because nobody's going to vote a Trump in here. But if you'd got married as a gay couple during this last year, and then they banned gay marriage, would your marriage then be regarded as null and void?
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
Because you technically, you got married when it was legally allowed.
They might change it to a civil partnership. Some news on that.
Yeah, there was that as well.
They've legalised heterosexual civil partnerships.
Which I don't understand. I don't understand what the difference is. Well, actually, I do, because civil partnerships kind of came into play because gay people couldn't get married, didn't they?
There are benefits to it, I believe. Basically, a sort of... It's not quite as committal as a marriage because you don't have to go through the same divorce
This wouldn't
proceedings.
have even been an issue if we'd have let gay people get married in the first place, because we probably wouldn't have needed civil partnerships.
Yeah, but the necessity to have that sort of...
What's the
committal,
difference?
I believe it's... The divorce process is a lot simpler, and you don't get the same tax bonuses as far as I'm aware. I don't know entirely. That might change. I don't know.
So why would somebody who has a choice between a civil partnership or a marriage choose civil partnership? What would be the benefit of taking that choice as opposed to a marriage?
Well, it's like
it's got something to do with like pension and other things as well.
Basically, you don't have to share your pension with your other half if you're not married.
No, I think because it's something to do with if people don't want to get married and have that full, commitment that takes a minimum of 2 years to get out of, and both have to agree, otherwise you have to sue for divorce.
Yeah.
You can go into a legal partnership with the other person, which is easier to. One person can choose to leave it.
Right, you
not
don't
both,
have to sue for...
But you still have the same rights as a married person.
It's a lot simpler divorce process.
Whereas if you just live as a common law husband and wife, you don't usually get, I think,
if I wanted
the
to
tax
divorce
benefits
you,
and stuff.
How would you go about that? I mean, like in
there's a meat cleaver
in the marriage
in the kitchen.
Law. What?
There's a meat cleaver in the kitchen.
In marriage law, though, would you have to have done something wrong?
Usually you have to.
If both of you agree.
If both of you agree, you've just fallen out. That's fine. But
if I
otherwise,
say I wanted to divorce you and you haven't done anything wrong and you refuse, what is my recourse then?
I'm not 100% sure. I've never been divorced.
Yeah.
And laws might have changed. I mean, a lot of this goes on me watching crime dramas.
It's all Henry VIII's fault, isn't it?
But I think you have to kind of prove that I'm, not contributing to the marriage in some way or something.
Yeah.
So it's all just the system's fault. You can't point to any one
It's
person.
all a load of bollocks, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Which we are breaking. I love the faces you pull.
Well, the podcast listeners couldn't see that.
Sorry.
Dear listener, I just made a suggestive face towards the camera, and I believe there's a slight feedback.
I can hear that. That's supposed to be muted. Excuse me a moment.
Now the up to, dear listener, is trying to loop the feedback loop so it doesn't go all whistly. Dear listener.
I need to do the thing on the WhatsApp.
I feel like I'm announcing on a tannoy, dear listener. And it sounds kind of weird.
Right, we're back on.
Jesus Christ, this is going so badly.
Do you know, we shouldn't do this. We should not do this while I'm drinking, because I have tried to operate cinema projectors when I've been off my tree, and it's not...
You're not drunk, you've had like one glass of whiskey.
I know, but I don't drink very often.
Not like a whole glass either, just a wee dram.
They're not that wee.
Fine.
Anyway, crime. Yeah, so moving on.
We were talking about the Supreme Court. And basically, if the Senate approved them, and the Senate is majority Republican, so they probably will approve anything Trump's put in, unless it's absolutely insane and they actually sort of have a mini party revolution in fighting, basically. Then they could literally put a newborn in.
A what?
A newborn.
In what?
In the Supreme Court if they wanted to.
Like a baby?
Yeah.
Why didn't you say baby then?
Well, to get the idea... It doesn't matter. They could put anyone in there. They don't have to be qualified. I don't know.
Does it have to be human?
I think it has to be human.
That would be ace.
I don't think that's in the Constitution, though. I don't think they accounted for goat Supreme Court justices.
No, but if it's not there, that you can't...
You know what? What was it?
Do you know what would be ace? They should put an orange.
Last week tonight, John Oliver basically made a Supreme Court of dogs. One of them's a lobster because he's a new one.
I'm confused.
Doesn't matter. They basically, it was so funny. They try and just put on sort of fake Supreme Court things, and it's fucking hilarious.
We should do a drinking bollocks podcast.
Drinking ball.
because it could be it would be so much different. I feel like our Breaking Bollocks podcasts get a bit I don't know what people want. You know, they do get a bit serious sometimes, even when we try not to.
Yeah.
But you just puke. Anyway, crime. Sorry.
Fine. Also in this story is the death penalty in general. Now, I would be surprised if you agreed with the death penalty in any situation, to be honest.
Would you?
Do you?
No.
No. Good. A piece of human rights, simple as that. They should be.
I don't actually agree with the
mindset of that justice system is for punishment.
I don't disagree with the fact that sometimes people need to be separated from society in general,
so that they can't do more harm to themselves or to...
But I do, others. In general, disagree with the concept of prison.
And...
it's not simply a case of... it's not... I'm not into punishment.
I'll quickly bring up something.
Not in the legal system anyway.
What was it? This is
gloss over that one.
No, I'm bringing up something in relation to that. It's another Adam ruins everything.
Adam?
That one that did the marijuana one.
Oh, that was maybe the one I was thinking about when I said about the Kurzgesagt thing.
Probably. But there is a Kurzgesagt one.
I'm hungry.
Are you sure you haven't been taking marijuana?
Can we have crisps on a podcast? Oh, we got some crunchy caramel M&Ms.
That would be horrible for the listeners. They could hear us just going...
They could hear you.
Yeah, well,
you wouldn't need a microphone.
Fuck you. Adam ruins.
I'll never forget being on, I think was it the second or third row of Matilda the musical, and there was a really quiet bit.
Yeah, the song's actually called Quiet.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's just like this moment's pause of silence, and all you could hear was as Firebolt bit into a Malteser.
I was quite young. Justice. That's not it.
Oh, the world's fucked, isn't it, really?
It's about private prisons. Now, we are going to take a break whilst we watch this. It's called The Shocking Way Private Prisons Make Money, which is a lot
Private prisons?
A lot of America's prisons are private.
All right. I don't think they have private prisons in...
No, because the UK
England?
has...
UK?
More sensible approaches to... Well... relatively more sensible compared to America approaches to
we haven't been
state-run stuff.
We haven't
like
been
we have an NHS.
We haven't been drawn and quartering people for quite a while.
Exactly. Although I think there are still some old laws that I was like, oh, you can be hung for this, but they're never used.
I'm going to allow Starstuff to weigh in on a particular law that I know she's thinking about at the moment. Yeah, before we do.
What, the bylaw in York that a Yorkshire person can shoot a Scotsman with a crossbow and arrow in York city centre on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Very specific circumstances.
They can be arranged.
Yeah. So if you're
for the
Scottish
right person.
and you want to go to visit
Don't
York...
ever come to York with
It
me
might
if I
have to
invite
be a
you.
York citizen, though.
Yeah, I am a York citizen.
Well, not like a York citizen, but someone that's resides in York.
No, I think you just
You're just making it up.
there.
I don't know.
Exactly.
It might
So you're
not
making
even
it up.
exist anymore. But there is a old law in Scotland about blasphemy laws that other countries that kill people for not believing in God use to justify theirs, despite the fact that in Scotland they don't use them anymore.
Can I get some crisps while we watch this?
Fine if you must.
No, you're alright, carry on.
Healthy with each other.
Munchies. What the fuck?
Indeed.
I actually found myself thinking during that. For once, I actually hope and wish that Trump is right about fake news, because that's just...
So, a lot of America's prisons are run for profit rather than actually stopping crime. And it costs people just the same amount.
We got to change the world, dude. It's a big job.
The only time you say dude is when you're drunk, so we know we've passed that threshold.
I'm not drunk. I'm just relaxed.
You're drunk. Not like vomiting.
Not
drunk.
criminally.
Yeah. Right.
Oops. You're in charge from now on.
That did also mention solitary confinement, which is...
Do they still do that?
Yes. And they possibly still do it
Oh,
in
hang
UK
on.
prisons.
They still do putting kids in cages and separating them from their parents, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
This is in danger of turning into a Let's Hate America podcast.
Well, yeah.
Well,
their justice
it might
system is
be.
fucked up.
It might be if it weren't for the fact that we're kind of just as bad in a lot of ways.
Yeah. The UK have also locked up migrant teenagers before.
With all the people we sent back to
Recently.
the Caribbean.
Well,
They've
through
been here since the early
through a
70s.
bureaucratic cock-up, but it still caused a lot of problems with people losing their jobs. I don't know if anyone was actually sent back, but they were given ridiculously patronising pamphlets.
I don't know what's worse, because part of me hopes that the reason that all that happens is because of bureaucratic idiocy and just incompetency.
Which Amber Rudd took the fall for, despite the fact that Theresa May had that during her run in the Home Office.
Or it's deliberately engineered and orchestrated. What's worse?
I have, honestly.
They're both pretty shit, and one of them's true.
Also, something that I wanted to mention about that death sentence for the gay man is the bias in court cases. The fact that jurors aren't infallible, and having just 15 random people off the street is quite a weird thing. Now, I believe there is a clause that strikes you off if you have racial bias.
All right, I don't know about that here. I
don't
know
know
that there are certain circumstances where you can apply to be exempt from jury service here.
Yeah. Also, and I only know this
but presumably you have to think that. I mean, like
from Hello Internet, because CGP Grey's dad was a lawyer. Is if you're a lawyer, they basically strike you off that too, because you know the law too well, apparently. Something like that. Or you'll find a way to weasel them out. I don't know why that is, but... And also, if you know the thing about...
I kind of understand that in one way, in that a lawyer's job in a court case, even if they know that their defendant is guilty, their job is to try to get them off, or try to get them as light a sentence as possible, isn't it? Even if they know and condemn what they've done, their job is to do their best to get that person off.
Yeah. Although apparently you can ask to not have a jury if you're part of the defense, if you're the defensive client.
Right.
You can ask to just be put, I think it's in front of, well, you can ask to be put in front of a judge, but sometimes it's 3 judges. It depends on the actual
Is this
scale
specific
of
to the UK that you're talking about?
I don't know. I think it's the same in the UK, but I wouldn't know. I've not had much.
Now,
have you ever been in a jury?
No, I have been called for jury service, but I have exempted myself from it.
Would you like to say why?
Because I have had experiences in life and psychotherapy as a result of those experiences, which in certain circumstances, depending on the case, may be like, for instance, if there were certain criminals that came up in front of me, if I was on the jury, I may be ill-equipped to deal with those situations because of things that have happened to me in the past.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't actually object to serving on a jury, but at the time it was really inconvenient, and I had that excuse.
Do you know beforehand what the actual case is?
No, you just get called for jury duty. You're told what date to turn up, and they pay you a nominal amount for being off work for those days.
Yeah, it's something ridiculously low usually though.
Yeah, but you could be there for months.
Yeah, there was one fairly recently where in Scotland. It was a fairly boring one. I did hear this on Hello Internet, where people were sitting on a jury for 20 months.
Yeah.
And they had to get counselling after
I'm not sure how it's not that I couldn't cope with it, but I'm not sure how I would deal with... Because, I mean, as you probably know, during our many discussions that we've had, some of them on the podcast, but over the years... I have a habit of playing devil's advocate. And
yeah,
it's not because I like to be argumentative. I just like to consider
the other side.
Yeah.
That is a worthwhile stance to have, because
so I think that could be a real pain in the ass to a jury coming to a decision.
Yeah. It's like, but what if there's nothing wrong with them and this has all been designed against them? Also, a lot of this, because I very recently listened to this Hello Internet episode, I believe it's the Dogfather one, linked to that.
The Dogfather?
Yeah, they talked a lot about the justice system and that, so a lot of the things I'm saying might come from that. but an interesting thing about how people are forced to make confessions for things that they didn't do. The plea bargaining system.
Oh, that's bollocks, that is.
Yeah.
That's such bollocks.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast, but there was a situation where there was murder and they had a suspect, and that suspect was found innocent. But they, to get out of that whole ordeal, decided to plant a knife that they said belonged to a friend that they had recently had an argument with. So they both ended up with 20 years. One of them ended up with a felony because they used the plea bargaining system. And one of them ended up with 20 years off her life but walking free. And felonies do have barriers to employment too, which is fucked up in itself because it I think that significantly raises recidivism.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Reoffending. That's easier to say.
I didn't even know what... I know what word you meant, but I don't know what that word meant. I would have known recidivism.
Yeah.
Did I just say that?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, shit.
Tamnavulin. I'm very eloquent.
You are. What were we talking about?
I've no idea, but I feel like we should be approaching the point where we go a bit more general about crime rather than specifics, because we've been over an hour.
We'll do another marathon episode, maybe.
Probably. Yeah. I did.
What?
Crime in general as a concept. I'd like to widen the discussion. I mean, we're talking very specifically about certain things such as the justice system in different countries,
Right.
the jury system, and the way we're talking more about the legal system. Can we look up a definition of the word crime in a reliable? Because our discussion, when the podcast isn't titled Justice or the Legal System.
No.
That's just our way of dealing with
An action or omission which constitutes an offence and is punishable by law.
Right, okay, so it is closely linked to the legal system.
Yeah.
And the legal system has definitions within it wherever you are on how justice is served. Now, I'm really into looking closely at how language labels different concepts. An offence, presumably in this case, means something which transgresses the rule of law, which is defined in a country.
But that's very subject to change.
Yeah.
Which we did discuss in morality a little.
Yeah.
Would you like to go deeper into that and how that connects to the actual moral?
I would like to, I mean, just for a moment to consider how it often happens the other way around. But imagine if you were, well, actually, I would cite a specific instance of if you were a homosexual. I can't remember the exact date when homosexuality became legal in the UK.
I shall look it up.
But if you were arrested for homosexuality in the UK the day before it became legal.
Right. So...
There we go. Bloody hell. Same-sex sexual activity was characterised as sinful and under the Buggery Act 1533 was outlawed and punishable by death.
That's
what the
a
fuck?
stupid name for something so
Yeah, but
serious.
that assumes that homosexuality is male on male.
Why?
Well, buggery is... Oh, well, am I thinking of sodomy?
I don't know. But
No.
something's coming to my mind that there is something that
Sexual activity...
it had only ever been referred to for men being
Yeah.
illegal.
Sexual
It's the
activity
same-
between women was never subject to the same legal
They
restrictions.
didn't
Now-
think women were interested.
This brings me
Well,
to...
I think the real reason for it is men like lesbians,
They're like
probably.
watching and joining in.
Yeah. So they went, oh, well, that's sexy, so... It was decriminalised in 1967 in England and Wales. I imagine... Oh, yeah, later in Scotland and Northern Ireland. I thought it would be earlier in Scotland, because it usually is earlier with progressive stuff in Scotland. So, and...
But I suppose, I mean, like, we could go into depth. I mean, like, one of the things that I don't know what the situation is now, but, and I don't even know if it was true at the time, but I had heard, referring to the age of consent, that if you were a boy under 16, there was different rules for if you were a girl under 16 or something and having sexual...
I imagine that's been changed since.
Yeah. I mean, certainly when I was younger, that was possibly the case. But the general crux of it is that crime and the definition of what is a crime. Actually, this was something I wanted to bring up. I am pretty certain that most people who drive are criminals.
Yeah.
Although they would, and the law, the way it's treated, kind of even supports this, even in terms of, I mean, it may well be that most people don't remember, but if you ever did the theory test, the highway code theory test, you might remember this. You should remember this even if you didn't have the theory test, because you did it before that came in. But breaking the highway code is a criminal offence in law.
Yeah.
Which means you don't even have to be a driver, actually. You can be drunk in charge of a bicycle or a horse.
You don't see many people
but
trotting down the
driving
96.
Driving at 31 miles per hour in a 30 mile per hour speed limit is a criminal act and renders you, by absolute definition, a criminal. Now, at the same time, as I referenced in a previous podcast that we did, I, to my utmost shame, and I'm not going to be going and driving tonight, but to my utmost shame, lost my license for a year because I totaled my car.
Were you drunk at the time?
Yeah, I was over the limit.
In terms of alcohol, blood level, whatever.
Yeah. But the interesting thing I note from the year that I spent analysing my behaviour and rehabilitating, I have to say, it does strike me as strange, although I don't mind it, it does strike me as strange that the vast majority of situations, driving offences are exempted from situations where you may be penalised, such as we went to America on holiday not long after that, when I was banned, and part of the ESTA process for that is to declare any criminal record, but it specifically states in the ESTA declaration except driving offences.
That's weird.
And also, after 5 years, they're wiped from any consideration for driving insurance. It has to be in the last 5 years, even though my license won't be clean until I'm 50. It'll still be on my license until I'm 50, another 4 years. But after 5 years, the insurance companies aren't interested anymore. So very often driving offences are exempted, even though they are criminal acts. And even though you are, I mean, what's the difference between running over and killing a child because you're driving at 40 in a 30 limit or because you're pissed? You're still doing the same thing. You're still killing someone unintentionally. So why are you less of a criminal for committing a driving offence? I mean, obviously it's unintentional, generally.
I think it's generally, you did mention earlier, is it a valid law if everyone ignores it?
There is it didn't used to be the case, but there is a mandatory consideration now which was in place when I went to court on that particular offence, that judges don't actually have a choice now. They used to have a choice, but they don't have a choice now. There has to be a mandatory 12-month driving ban attached to...
But they could, depending on the circumstances, sentence you to like a couple of months in prison, is that correct?
I suppose in severe circumstances that might be the case. I mean, in my circumstance,
Like,
it was clear.
if you actually ended up killing people because of that, would you?
Yeah.
You probably might have ended up in prison.
I don't know what the situation would be in that case, but I mean, in my case, obviously, it was clear that I, in every other sense, am a responsible adult. But it was clear that I regretted it. It was clear I had responsibilities family-wise. I basically did everything I was supposed to, apart from turn up on the day of the fucking court case. Jesus. Did you hear about that?
No.
I turned up
I think I vaguely remember it, but not specifically.
at court for my hearing for my drink driving conviction. And I walked in there and they couldn't find my name on the schedule. And I was thinking, oh shit, what's going on here? It turned out, like, after about 20 minutes of back to and fro in, it turned out I was a day late. And that for the past 24 hours, there had been a warrant out for my arrest. So basically, the police could have turned up at our house and arrested me in front of you guys, in front of the kids, and
Yeah.
because I hadn't turned up at court. Not intentionally, I just got the fucking date wrong.
Yeah.
But that's another instance of where the judge used their judgment, which is their job, I suppose. And obviously, the woman at the front desk had gone in and explained to him, look, the guy looks mortified. He's obviously just got the date wrong and turned up a day late. And the judge has said, yeah, we'll just reset the court date then. Obviously, it's not. He's not deliberately committed a criminal act.
Deliberate
Not turning up.
things, obviously, to stop it just backing up and people just being like, oh, well, I
didn't know.
I just didn't want to go
Yeah.
and feel like I had stuff to do that day, so fuck you, I'm not going to court.
But then, having said that, when I did turn up on the actual case, I kind of understand why I got basically the minimum 12-month ban and a £400 fine. When it could have been a lot worse, because I turned up in a suit and tie. And
Right.
there were other people that were turning up there in tracksuits and lounging around and basically just kind of effing and blinding. And it's like, I was in the wrong place. At that point, I just thought, like, this is not where I belong.
Like, you're just there, all neat and pretty with your suit on.
Yeah.
Little
There's
bow
some
tie.
chap going, aye, what the fuck? I was like...
Oh, fucking take shoes, mate.
And do you know what the most annoying thing is?
What?
And I don't care. I'm going to name names. Evening Express, Aberdeen.
How did they?
I had a full-page photo of me coming out of the courthouse. I was 1.5 times over the limit. I had a full-page photo of me coming out of the courthouse. And imagine how you'd look coming out of the courthouse. You've just been in court for your first time in your life. You're coming out through the steps. And the confusion that would cross your mind when
Yeah.
you see a press photographer outside the court taking your photo.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I was just like, my face was just like, just confusion. But obviously, the confused face looks
Yeah,
like you're a
especially-
real evil, mean bastard.
Especially at a sort of time where everything's fucked for you. Especially
Yeah.
if you've not actually intentionally done anything.
I'm not trying to excuse what I did. I deserved what I got. But the press,
But just being sort of
in the same
everyone
article,
up in your face. And did they ask questions of you?
No. They just took a photo and fucked off.
In-
But in the same article, they referenced 2 other people who were in court the same day for the same offence, one of which was 3 times over the limit and one of which was 5 times over the limit. And I bet your fucking life they were the ones that were sat there in chav tracksuits giving it effing and blinding at the judge, because it wasn't a big story to them. They wanted to show the respectable guy who never normally does anything wrong falling from grace. That's what your justice crime system does for you. I learnt my lesson from that next day coming
Name
into the
names.
bedroom and
You
realising...
said I'll name names.
Yeah.
You didn't name names.
Well, all right, Evening Express. Aberdeen Evening Express, fuck you. You're vermin just as much as the Sun and the News of the World used to be.
And are still.
Yeah. Well, News of the World doesn't exist anymore. It's now the Sun on Sunday because Rupert Murdoch, News of the World basically couldn't carry on because they'd crossed the line way too much and he had to close them down. But News of the World was only ever the version of The Sun that came out on a Sunday. But now it's called The Sun on Sunday.
Right.
He closed the News of the World down because they fucked up.
Right.
And replaced it with his own. Well, he ran both of the papers anyway. So
yeah, it's kind of weird how Rupert Murdoch has a monopoly.
I'm worried about drinking while we podcast because I'm getting very outspoken.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just don't be sick.
No, I'm not going to be sick.
Yeah, more generally, talking about the moral links there. Because the law's not moral. I said this in a morality podcast.
It's a system. It's a human-made system.
Yeah, and like humans and human-made systems, it's subject to fuck-ups.
Like everything we talk about, there are grey areas, and the law, like any human invention, tries to stick to absolutes.
Yeah, but you can't just have, the law's absolutely right, because it's not. It very rarely is.
It's an analogue.
What?
Of reality. It's not a digital system. It's not an on or off. It's not a right or wrong. There are in betweens. It's a gradual system.
Yeah. So in places where the laws are different, then like there's no real connection there, I don't think.
I mean, it's going into the realm of literature, but there are a couple of Crime and Punishment was something that I don't know if I've read it. I've definitely seen the TV adaptation of it. Starstuff has recently downloaded it. Have you read it yet?
No, I only downloaded it last night.
That's an interesting piece of literature, but one that I'm well aware of the subject matter of simply because of the musical connection is Les Miserables, Victor Hugo, which is a very dry read at times. I think it's 150 pages. It just goes into a backstory of the history of the French political system at the time. But the whole concept of the guy being hunted his whole life, then having to go into, well, not hiding, but he has to take on a pseudonym to hide from his true identity, basically because he was branded a criminal for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his starving family.
Yeah.
That is an example of a society. And I think Victor Hugo was quite a political writer. I think he was commenting on the state of society at the time. I mean, this was all pre sort of French Revolution time. This was what led to the French Revolution. So clearly he's talking from experience, and that's how things were. If I remember
correctly, that was one of their failed revolutions.
That particular one was, yeah. That was a student revolt. But, I mean, I suppose what worries me is this whole sort of rise of fascism and division of society thing is a worrying direction for us to be going in. I'm not saying that at the moment things are disastrous globally, but we're heading in a worrying direction because it always seems to me when you look back at history that there are times when things are heading in a particular direction and they have to reach pretty damned awful conditions before things explode and get overturned, before revolution kicks in.
We won't have a link to this because it'll be almost impossible to find, but I did see a tweet from someone basically saying that they write on the Holocaust, or they teach on the Holocaust, and how people are saying, like, this is the first stages of the Holocaust, and she said, you're wrong.
Yeah.
We're several stages into it.
Yeah, I shared that meme, on Facebook. I remember seeing that. We are. It's difficult
when you're locking children up.
The thing is, as well, I wonder whether there's a multiple kind of...
locking children up, no less, sorry.
There's also the other thing where certain governments don't necessarily approve of what other governments are doing, but they don't do anything to stop or help it, which is exactly what happened during the Spanish Civil War with Franco. And he tried to take over.
That happens all the time.
He didn't succeed in taking over the government, but they were the fascists. And, people were going over, from various places, certainly from the UK, but from Germany, from Russia.
Yeah.
The Russians were particularly supporting them because obviously that was when after the Bolsheviks were in. The Germans at the particular time were mostly going to support the fascists because they'd already moved down that road.
The point I was going to make, or was trying to sort of head towards, was that the difficulty is history is always painted in a particular light. And we look back at the political preparations, if you like, for what happened during the first half of the 20th century. And we paint it in a particular light. I don't know who, when I'm saying we, I'm talking about society in general. The way things are portrayed about the rise of Hitler, the rise of fascism, the rise of Nazism, the invasion of the rest of Europe by the Nazis, everything that was going on in Russia in the 80s, everything is painted in a particular light by history. But if you were there at the time experiencing it, how did that feel? How did that stuff manifest itself in a practical everyday sense? And how does that compare to what we are experiencing now? Because I don't think that's something, unless you've experienced both things, I don't think that's something you can fully appreciate.
I think
you have to take people's word for it who were there.
Most people probably didn't even notice it until it got into the late stages.
Yeah, exactly.
And the only reason we're noticing it now is because of the interconnectivity and the exposure of the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a lot more difficult for people like Assad to hide their actions.
Which makes you wonder...
This day and age, because people will record stuff.
Which makes you wonder what the present world is going to produce. Because, I mean... Could Nazi Germany could the Holocaust and Nazi Germany have happened in a realm of, in a world where the internet existed?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that long ago that we've had genocide in scarily close places.
Yeah.
Places we go on holiday now, Croatia.
Yeah. Even like within the past decade in the Arab Spring, you've got a lot of genocide there.
I don't know because I was a child at the time, but when you reach a particular age during school, at some point, you have this sense that the world is a fixed geographical entity. Czechoslovakia was, to me, when I was at school, was just a country that was as strong and in existence and reliable as the UK or France or Germany. Well, even Germany, actually. When I was at school, that wasn't Germany. It was East Germany and West Germany.
It's quite funny at school because...
So what makes us think that the UK is that?
The modern studies and geography textbooks are so out of date that they still have the USSR in them.
Yeah. But the UK is historically a lot older, but what makes us think that it's so safe?
It's not. But I guess the fact that it has changed relatively.
I don't know whether it
recently, I think.
See, that's the thing as well, is that the way things are now with the political compass in the UK in general. I don't mean regionally up here. I mean just the right leaning.
Generally,
feel.
The populace is centre right.
Yeah. I remember the 80s. From a purely dispassionate point of view, I would think that was a similar kind of political time. But And in actual fact, maybe Maggie Thatcher was even more, that whole time was even more right-wing, but people didn't really know what they were doing at the time. I don't know. But even Tony Blair, Labour wasn't really left under his
Which
leadership.
is why I do quite like Jeremy Corbyn, because instead we've got actual opposition, which is the reason that...
I still think we've gone on to politics instead of crime.
Right, we'll go back onto crime, but the reason I believe that has the rise of right-wing fascists has come into play is because there's not been serious opposition in a lot of places.
I worry about the future state of the world.
But we'll go on to specifically punishment, because we did slightly brush over it, that we mostly disagree with prisons.
I do.
Right now, it's quite difficult to change anything reality-wise, which is something that that the big argument on Discord was about, is the reality of changing things like the Supreme Court. It's written in the Constitution and no one wants to fucking change the Constitution for some reason.
For me, this overlaps with morality in that how can you... I mean, punishment to me is really about revenge. Because you can't possibly think that... Basically, punishment is about whether physically or in terms of... Well, it is physical, isn't it, if you confine someone. It's basically about beating someone for what they've done wrong. It's the old kind of... it's the cane, it's the...
Yeah. It's based on God punishing people. The argument of God punishing people in hell. But I'm going to quickly bring up...
I can't see how it possibly results in anything other than making a criminal more criminal or killing them. It doesn't reform anyone.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't. Generally...
And even the people that might show some temporary change in behaviour, it's through fear. And fear is not a safe driving factor for action.
Like, the death penalty doesn't deter people. The figures don't show a deterrence, and in fact, crime rates are higher in
the death
states
penalty.
with
The death penalty is basically about entertainment, to me.
I don't think it's very entertaining for the people there.
No, but that used to be, well, I don't know. People used to gather at the Tower of London to watch public executions, and they used to cheer.
I'm going to quickly try and find this video that I was looking for.
And anyone who... I don't know whether or not they ever broadcast or televise any public executions in America. But certainly the prospect of people being executed, anybody who's in favour of that is going to, at least metaphorically, applaud the action.
Yeah.
So it is about...
The people, like, nowadays it's more just the victims, close ones, get to see the execution, and a few officials and, like, a priest or something.
And how would that...
But they have to be counselled after that, and it doesn't actually solve anything.
I was going to say, how would that make you feel? I mean...
Yeah.
If I imagine somebody murdered you, would it make me feel any better?
I assure you imagine that often.
But would it make me, practically speaking, would it make me feel any better? Would it make things any better for me if I then watched them put to death? How would that solve anything for me?
Yeah. I'm still trying to find this video. I'm not sure what it was called. This is a video by Dark Matter 2525 or 2525 or 2525, whatever. They make...
2525?
Something like that. Animations on religion, based around the hypocrisy of...
We can't keep religion out of any of our podcasts, can we?
It does relate to the justice system and how punishment works. Obviously, in this case, because it's God, it's eternal, which is much worse. And... but it does And with the death penalty in mind, that is the result of that is eternal. It's just not eternal pain or torture.
We must have been going on for way too long. Starstuff's leaving.
Yeah. It is quite late. It's like 11:30.
We'll finish soon. Carry on.
Yeah. So I'll just play this video. Links in the description. Right, so there was a specific part of that video talking about if a woman was raped and her son was murdered, and then God's justification for that would be that those two men would burn forever in hell, then that somehow makes it justified, which it doesn't. The woman's still been raped, the boy's still been murdered, and they're being tortured forever for an action that could have been stopped. And that is somewhat applicable, although God doesn't exist, so we're not all powerful.
See, that kind of ties into the whole. I mean, there is a concept of heaven being something above and hell being below. We are essentially, there is a theory that says that we are in hell now, and in that situation, all four people are suffering now.
Yeah.
So that would be what the definition of hell was. That everybody's suffering.
I would argue for actually going into these communities where crime rates are high and doing social work rather than arresting people once they've done the crimes.
Yeah. It's fucking religions.
Put them on the right path before it happens.
It's obviously a lot more complicated than that, but general concepts of crime and punishment
also rehabilitation stops
could help
reoffending.
things greatly.
It doesn't matter if you think, oh well, they're never going to learn if they're not punished. That's not what the stats show. So, whether you like it or not, rehabilitating them will result in less people suffering.
What is punishment? I mean, while I would consider that the biggest rehabilitation mechanism for me with the drink driving thing was confronting the fact that I could have not come home when I came home and your sister came in and hugged me, and for you I could not have come home. That was the biggest factor. But the fact that I was banned from driving for 12 months and had to pay £400, the £400 was irrelevant, but the 12 months gave that. For that 12 months I was thinking about that a lot.
On a note about that, and this isn't trying to make you feel like guilty about it, I know you regret it deeply, but I do remember around about that time at school we were asked to write a newspaper article, and I decided to write it about that.
Right.
I don't remember the specifics of it, but I think that shows that it did affect me to some degree.
Yeah, well, it must have done.
Yeah.
It would have done.
But I don't think I handled it how I would now, because I was about 7, and I think I must have handled it quite weirdly.
Do you mind me asking how you handled it?
I think I just sort of
I mean, if you're not comfortable talking about it, that's fine.
to a degree passed it off as a story.
Right.
Just as a story.
Yeah, so you took it from a journalist's perspective.
Yeah. And sort of detached myself from it, and I don't think I realised at the time that you could have died.
No, well, you were quite young. I don't think at that age you really understood what death was, did you?
I mean, I was aware of it, I just didn't really understand it, because I
think the older you get, the more you...
I had anyone close to me die at that point.
Yeah.
The first time I think I was about 10, when my great-granddad died.
Crime. Turned into death.
That got quite
depressing. I said at the beginning, we always end up talking about something like death. Religion always comes into it.
This is getting very long. This might end up being longer than UK politics.
They might.
We'll end up having.
We
we'll keep getting longer and longer, and in a couple of episodes, we'll end up this being 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, they'll get their money's worth. I'll tell you what, though. At that point, I'm going to be drinking every episode.
Yeah, by the time you've had that much time to drink, you'll be fucking.
Or I might not. I might not never touch a drop. I might not never touch a drop. I might never touch a drop again when there's a mic open. Simply because of I've got to edit this shit.
Yeah. Well, apparently you only listen through it, so.
No, I do take
yeah,
some license. Anyway, I think
we should really wrap up. Have we reached any conclusions?
Crime.
Overall, the world's a bit fucked up, and we should change a lot of shit. But it's quite difficult to change shit.
I think one conclusion we have made is rehabilitation.
I think we'd made that conclusion before, but making that clear to everyone else that is the best way to go forward, and we need to change things so it's most geared towards that.
Yeah.
But with currently the way the world's going, with politics generally, right, don't want it to go that way.
What do you think Dostoevsky was trying to say when he specifically paired those two words in the title of that novel, Crime and Punishment?
I'm guessing.
Maybe you should read it before you comment on that. We'll see you in a few years. No, I've watched the 2-part TV adaptation of it, but it is a very weighty novel. I mean, it's not as long as War and Peace.
I'm guessing it's not positive towards.
I think it would depend on your viewpoint.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think
a lot of things you can take.
I would describe it as analytical, experimental.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing they're very closely linked, especially at that time, and now they're very closely linked.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I would say it's well worth either watching an adaptation of it, a good adaptation of it, or...
Should probably mention, we've already made our views pretty clear on the drug side of crime and how that overcrowds prisons and how it's racially biased, and in general, a lot of the laws, especially in America, have a lot of bias. And the situation just needs to get better. But I think we're making progress as a world, as a society. But there'll always be setbacks, and unfortunately people suffer in those setbacks.
Yeah. There'll always be a fight.
Unfortunately. But, yeah, we have been going on for nearly 2 hours.
We have.
So...
Let's stop.
Yeah.
Before I drink any more. I don't want to pour any more out tonight.
Nah.
Gotta get up in the morning. So...
I've been Firebolt.
I've been the Orbiter.
And this has been Breaking Bollocks, episode 15, on crime.
Criminal podcast.
This podcast should be a crime.
Good night.
Dear listener. Thanks for watching. We'd really appreciate it if you support us on various things, obviously subscribing on YouTube, Twitch, following us on Twitter or Facebook. We have a Discord server that you can join and talk to us and other people, and a website where you can check out blog posts.
And obviously this isn't free for us to run, so if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Patreon page where you can donate monthly and get subscriber rewards. We also have a Stream Elements tipping page where you can make one-off donations. The links are all in the description.
Farewell.
See you next time.
Now you've made it just weird.